Do you ever watch pro games or just high ELO players to learn how to get better, and everything they do just seems easy and simple? You end up telling yourself, hey, I can do that too. But then you go and play and, well, it never turns out that way, right? Things are messy, hard, and you just don't know why. This is the main issue a lot of players face, especially top laners due to the face-to-face nature of the lane. The problem that you may have with climbing is not that you're not good enough, but rather that you're making the game harder for yourself in ways that you may not potentially realize. In this guide, we'll be taking a look at some of these super simple mistakes players make, which really complicates the game for them. And if you want to climb ranks as a top laner, then we have a limited time offer for you. We created a special course on our website showing how you can climb to Diamond in 30 days as a top laner. This course has received insanely positive reviews on our website. Not only are a ton of people saying it's the best course we have ever created, but they're also getting massive rank increases that we've never seen before. By unlocking this full course, you not only get access to every episode in the series, but also 23 additional videos documenting every step of the climb from silver to diamond. This course alone took us over 1 month to create and is essential if you want to improve and see results. For a limited time, we're offering a discount through the link in the description below. So, what are you waiting for? Click the link and start ranking up. Alright, now back to the guide. A super common way that we see top laners troll themselves is by not understanding how to convert their leads into a win and instead just throwing everything away. Let's explain by looking at a platinum ELO game of a Yone versus Irelia. The immediate thing to point out in this lane is that Yone is running Teleport and Irelia is running Ignite. When you're playing TP versus a combat summoner spell, your immediate thought should be not that you'll kill your opponent, but that you'll crush them by forcing them into a bad lane state eventually. This is because they have no insurance policy. If the Ignite player makes a single mistake, they will have no way to recover and be forced into a terrible spot. So technically, Yone should avoid all-ins as much as possible. Knowing that, here's what immediately happens at the start of the lane. Irelia thinks her champion is more broken than it actually is and overcommits into a lethal tempo Yone behind his minion wave at level 1. Needless to say, she gets annihilated in the fight. Now, Yone has a massive HP lead, control over the wave, and Irelia threw her only win condition out the window because she needs to be the one in control of the lane with Ignite. This lane could not be any more over. But let's watch what happens when you don't know how to convert advantages. Yone uses his lane advantage and continues to slow push a wave into Irelia. This is good so far, as slow pushing can net you a big advantage, as you should all be aware of by now. As he does, Yone can notice the Echo taking the Raptor camp. When reviewing lower ELO, we don't expect players to keep track of everything a jungler is doing and their precise pathing every game, especially when you need to focus on your own lane. But right now, Yone has literally nothing to focus on but last hitting. Whenever you're in these chill moments where your lane opponent isn't fighting you, you should be looking at the map. There is literally nothing else going on. So, Yone should have great information that Echo is pathing top, but he also happens to be struggling on his clear too. Okay, great. So as Yone crashes this wave, let's see if you know how to instantly win this game. With the information gathered, what should Yone do now? Invading and getting information on Echo's blue side would be game winning here, but let's watch what happens first and then break this down afterwards. Yone just puts a very shallow ward in this river brush and then proceeds to just idle in lane doing nothing. Great use of a big minion crash, eh? As the wave finally leaves the tower, Yone begins hitting the wave fairly aggressively to keep pushing. Quick question, is this right or wrong to do? It's definitely wrong, and it's moments like these that we look out for when reviewing low ELO. These are the very basic decisions that many players get wrong, which are costing them so many games. His jungler is on the top side of the map. You want the wave to be pushing into you so that you can set up ganks or force Irelia to base at a horrible timing, which would make her life miserable since she's running Ignite and could not reset. Instead, Yone continues to keep pushing very aggressively close to Irelia's tower. Not only is it bad due to the previous jungle proximity, but it's bad for the matchup as well. Think about it, both Yone and Irelia want to be able to go for extended trades. And remember, this concept could apply to any other champion with similar trading patterns. With the wave in this spot, Aurelia can keep playing safe until she sees a good trade opportunity. On the other hand though, since the wave is so close to Aurelia's tower, Yone can't ever go for a long trade. So he's opened himself up to being punished, but he can't punish Aurelia back. Do you see why it's absolutely horrible to keep the wave here for too long? And that's exactly what ends up happening. Aurelia finds an opening where Yone mispositions and chunks him super hard, salvaging the lane from her previous mistake. That trade has cost Yone dearly. Everyone likes to talk about how they always have the worst teammates, but Yone this game even has the winning jungler. So when Hecarim comes to gank top lane, Yone literally cannot help him that much due to that terrible mistake. While Hecarim ganks, Yone was stuck at tower for a moment, unable to follow up. This leaves Hecarim alone as Echo comes to counter gank, turning this entire sequence into a disaster. Hecarim goes down, throwing his own lead, trying to help his losing top laner. And tragically, Yone is still chunked out, so Echo and Aurelia build up a wave and just dive him too. Yone went from having the perfect start, literally handed to him by his lane opponent, to throwing it all away. And we've only covered his game losing mistake. We haven't even discussed the advantage he threw away. Remember how we saw Echo over here. Yone could have invaded off this crash and literally won the game because of how poorly Echo was clearing. This causes major issues for the enemy team. If Aurelia would have collapsed to help, the wave is pushing away from her, so Yone can just waste their time and come out ahead since he'll lose far fewer minions than Aurelia. And if Aurelia doesn't come, then Yone can just push Echo off his camps or even kill him if Echo tilts. That's not to mention the raging that's going to happen on that team if Aurelia doesn't collapse to help. On top of that, it gives a ton of information to your own jungler, potentially allowing him to invade alongside you to win a 2v2. Plus, the wave is pushing into you after you go back to lane. It is literally game over. We're not saying that this is exactly what would have happened every time, and it's not really something to overly think about. The point that we want to get at is that it doesn't feel like players understand how they got to the place where they did and the advantages that they now have. This is evident by the fact that players just throw their leads away so willingly, as Yone did here. He probably just wasn't aware of what he had going for him, and he definitely didn't understand how pushing is bad. He's probably just not thinking at all. And it's also clear by how few proactive moves players make to really drive home their lead, like this invade would have done. Basically, when we watch lower ELO, it just feels like no one really understands what advantages they have. If they did, they wouldn't throw it away so often, and they'd actually push their leads further. But neither of these things happen. Alright, let's take a look at another example of a Platinum Renekton. Much like the previous Yone, Renekton won early abusing his lane bully status and really chunking the Shen down. So, not only is he in control of the wave first, but he's got a health lead on top of that. This should be a guaranteed lead. So let's skip ahead a bit now. He crashes the wave, tries to rotate to his own jungle afterwards, and comes back to lane. Nothing to complain about here as he helped his own team score a kill by trapping the enemy Echo. Unfortunately, as Renekton comes back to lane, he cannot wait literally 10 seconds for the wave to push into him. Instead, he walks up to Shen to fight and just loses a short trade. Think about why this was so bad. Shen has Grasp and a powerful but very short-lasting W cooldown. Meanwhile, Renekton has Conquer and can win long trades with his E and Q. But he can't do that because he can't extend the trade here, so Shen will come out ahead. Imagine if that exact same trade happens further out into the lane though. Renekton can just wait out the W and chase Shen down through the lane. Okay, fine, it's a small mistake, right? You don't play perfect all the time and maybe he was just feeling confident. Then what about what happens next? Renekton tries to fight at a level disadvantage out of tilt and loses hard. Frustrated that he's not winning anymore, he full pivots into re-crashing the wave now. But why? First of all, he literally can't. Shen has an incoming wave that will get here before Renekton can crash. But number two, just why? Why is he trying to crash? What's he gonna do if he does crash the wave? Roam? No. Invade? No. Recall? Okay, sure, but he could just recall now. The wave is pushing into him. That's literally the best time to set up a recall in most cases. Then he just TPs back and freezes, which then forces Shen to have to use his TP as well. Then he's just winning again because the lane is in a favorable spot for him. However, none of those choices are going through Renekton's mind. It's really just a must push, hit minion good mentality. And well, he rightfully gets punished for it. Once again, another decently rated top lane loses lane from a winning spot for literally zero reason. The tragic problem is that these constant game-losing throws aren't just one-sided. Both players in top are of course constantly messing up. It honestly feels like whoever wins in lower rated games is usually whoever just gets lucky and capitalizes first on the other's mistake. Let's take a look at one final platinum example of this being the case. Here we have a Pantheon versus Yone, and Panth is about to commit the cardinal sin of any top laner that has a global ultimate. Right now, he's about to have lane pressure with a slow pushing wave. As stated before, this is ideal for any lane bully top. As he sets this up though, Pantheon notices his team trying to kill Diana in mid and ults on over there. We cannot emphasize enough how big of a mistake this is in solo queue. Ulting while your wave is pushing away from you this early is really bad, especially if you're not guaranteed to get like 2 kills worth out of the ult. Pantheon at best was going to get an assist or just kill steal here. This is not worth it. But even sadder, he got the worst outcome possible of not getting anything at all. Now he has to shamefully walk back to a freezing wave. Well, not really. The Yone, instead of punishing Panth's mistake, just pushes the wave back in. This is probably why players like Pantheon ult like this, because they never get appropriately punished. And again, Yone has just omega griefed himself and saved the Pantheon. We keep mentioning this mistake in this guide, and for good reason. Yone wants long trades, and Pantheon wants short ones. Yone was handed a freeze where he could play to that win condition, but instead, he's handing Pantheon the perfect lane state to trade. But of course, none of that analysis is going to matter whatsoever. Pantheon, upon entering the lane, will just waste his 5-stacked Q on the wave right in front of Yone, and then walk up to get punished. And afterwards, he'll stun a minion and continue trading even though he's down an entire wave. Despite doing everything in his power to lose this lane, the trade was somehow almost even. That's how hard Yone had trolled himself by pushing, and how little Pantheon is capitalizing on it. But the person trolling themselves a little less is the one who will come out ahead here. Pantheon, now out of sustain, keeps tanking poke after poke from the enemy Yone, and eventually dips extremely low. Refusing to admit his mistake and base, Pantheon is eventually taken down by Yone and loses a lane that he should stomp early on. As we said, both players just kind of trolled themselves until one of them finally found the appropriate punish. This is the big mistake that holds so many players back, just playing in the moment. It feels like no one is thinking about big picture stuff and just ends up making games harder on themselves for no reason. Like this Camille trading here for what purpose exactly? What is even the point in trading evenly here? There is none. It's not like she'd stop Volibear rotating down to the jungle anyway, so she just takes a massive chunk of health and gets dove for it. Time and time again, it is just a bunch of silly mistakes that don't make sense, which is why so many players diamond and below lose games. So the best advice that we have for you in regards to climbing is to always ask yourself, why is it that you're doing what you're doing right now? What are you trying to achieve? How does it help you achieve that? If you can't answer those questions when you trade, interact with minion waves, or anything else, then you're doing yourself a disservice and making the game infinitely harder for yourself than it needs to be. Anyway, that's a wrap on this one. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.